What is up, guys? What is going on?
Nothing. Just excited and geeked to talk
I know
everything
Chase
negative
is
one.
super stoked.
He's super stoked. He's been waiting all week to talk about this movie. We bullied him in to go to see
You
it, and he
did.
finally did.
Yep, you did.
But I don't think regrettably, right, Chase?
No, yeah, I really
Sure
thought
you're
I wouldn't
over the
like
moon.
it because you remember I didn't like Thanksgiving as much as you guys,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
what I was
different.
thinking about. When you said you were gonna go see it, I was like, "Crap! I hope this isn't number two." He walks out and he's like, what is your guys' taste in movies, man?"
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
Speaking of, real quick, they did greenlight the sequel already.
I
They're gonna
did
do
hear
oh,
that.
that,
did they?
which I don't know how I
Was
feel.
was it me called -2? Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it
Yeah.
either. By the way, so we'll see how that
I
works out.
think
We
he
can
was
maybe
talking
talk
about
about that at the
Thanksgiving,
end.
but I
Oh
know they
shit!
want.
I was talking. That's
My
why I was like,
bad.
wait, what?
I thought you were talking about Godzilla.
No,
No,
he
no.
wants to do a sequel,
That's
which
funny.
will be cool. Well, I'm sure we get towards that on the end.
Yeah.
Will, since you've been wanting to do this review, and it was your
Yeah.
idea, you open it up, my man. You've been
Yeah,
bursting at the
before I do
literal
that though,
seams.
I wanna just get I hope you guys see what I'm wearing here, just to remind you guys who I'm
Oh,
Oh
going
God, where's the disconnect button
God.
Gabe loves so
I should have
much?
wore yeah. Should have worn my
but,
Golden Knights t-shirt. I
but yeah,
almost did too.
yeah, we should do that one episode. We'll just all wear hockey gear.
There you go.
Yeah, we've all been wanting to talk about this, but I don't know if I saw it before you did, Gabe. I know I saw it last Friday.
You saw it like literally the showing before I did.
Yep, right
Yeah, I think it
after,
was like
right
a
before.
3:15 PM showing, like
Yeah.
earlier show. And what surprised me first and foremost was how packed the theater was. Usually, I've been to showings at that time. I did not expect for there to be as many people there as there were at that time.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was absolutely blown away by this movie. And I made some comments about this before. I think I went in kind of expecting somewhat of a MonsterVerse style movie. What I didn't expect was that this movie was going to take me to those places emotionally where I was like on the verge of shedding tears at certain points. It was that effective. We can get into spoilers, I think, if you guys want in a bit, but
I
just to
figured
give
we
you
would.
guys starting thoughts. I don't know if it's I mean, it's probably definitely my favorite Godzilla movie, I will say. I think it's safe for me. I think I feel confident enough to say that. And that's with utmost respect to the 1954 original. I grew up with Godzilla movies as a kid. Although I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, I don't remember. Like, it's hard to remember what movie's what. I just remember, okay, he's fighting
There's
this
so
monster
many.
here. There's so many. But that's what's cool about the Godzilla universe is that I guess you have all these different styles. That there's really at this point in time anyway, there's something for everybody. But yeah, man, this movie, I'll say it's definitely my favorite. I just this is what I've been like waiting for with a newer Godzilla movie. We came somewhat. I don't want to say close because 2014 had some of those emotional tones. It had somewhat of a decent plot and story, but it just didn't really get there for me. Especially when Bryan Cranston exited, when his character exited the movie,
Yeah.
right? It kind of fell apart after that, right? And that says a lot about him as I should say him as an actor, but kudos to Gareth Edwards. I do really appreciate the 2014 film because of how he approached it in terms of the directing style and wanting to create build up and tension through the use of story and then having the monsters kind of as a backdrop, so to speak. But this movie just accomplished that so much better, right? It has that emotion, it has that just that really somber. It's just a somber story about the struggles that people are going to with our characters in particular in post-war Japan and what it's like, and then for Godzilla to just show up and fuck everything up even more. It's horrible. Um,
Mhm.
but before we get into any spoilers, I just want to say that the sound mixing, we've talked about this, probably one of my favorite things about it. Um, I can't think of another movie that I've seen this year where the sound mixing was that well done.
Crisp,
And
super
everything
crisp.
about like super crisp and like everything from the roar to the action sequences when you have the buildings being destroyed and all that. It just sounded so good in my theater, and I didn't even see it in a Dolby Cinema. And Chase, I think you said you're going to go see that actually right after we're done recording this. I think you're going to
In
check it out, so
Dolby.
you'll have the luxury of
Viewing
seeing.
number two.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I loved it, dude, and I'm so glad that I went to see it in the theater because I was like last minute I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna go see it. And I'm glad I did. So definitely one of my top movies of the year. I don't know if it's number one yet, but we'll see where it ends up. But yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts. I loved it.
Yeah. I pretty much like I know we kind of talked about this during our last video, but I walked in just wanting a honestly just even like a mediocre monster flick. Like I wasn't expecting anything crazy with it. I just wanted a good Godzilla story, and I think what it delivered was just like way beyond what I was expecting. Like I mean, I think Godzilla in this movie is just kind of this there's no like almost there's no build up to him. He just kind of like unleashes himself at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, he
And you're
does.
like, what the hell? It's just like this force of nature. But also at the same time, you're also getting just kind of like what Will was talking about. You're getting this uh, incredible representation of what post World War II Japan was like, and what people were going through personally, what the people were going through culturally in terms of their identity. Like it turns into this like crazy deep story that sometimes I was like, is this a Godzilla movie? Like I forgot I was watching a Godzilla movie sometimes, and
Right.
I think Godzilla, I kind of said this in my Letterboxd review, like in terms of like symbolism, I feel like he was almost just like a manifestation of just like all the bad shit that they were going through at the time. You know what I mean? It's like they just got out of World War II, and now they're having to deal with this, this monster that just kind of presents itself. And I think that's what really made this movie successful. Like it delivered these characters that you really cared about. I think I'd mentioned in the last podcast that, my brother and I went to go see it, and dude, at the end, I had a tear running down my face. I was like, what the hell is going on? I look over at my brother, he's freaking like he's trying to hide it. He's like, his eyes are getting teary at the end of the movie, and I'm like, this is not what I was expecting whatsoever with this film. And the special effects for a $15 million budget, which we kind of touched on last time, it's insane. Like what they really squeezed that 15 million and delivered something that looks almost like a $100 million blockbuster.
Yeah.
And then just like what you said, Will, the sound design, it's just I think I'd
Amazing.
mentioned last time, yeah, like I was sitting in the theater. I'm like, did this theater like upgrade its speaker system? Like, what's going on? I'm like, this sounds like freaking incredible. The gunshots, like, I love the silent, like the brief silence, and then just like him unleashing, his roar and his breath. Like it was so impactful, and you really felt that sound in it. I'm hoping the 4K comes with like a Dolby Atmos mix. But yeah, man, I mean, just it had a really good story. It had characters that you really cared about. Um, the story took turns I was not expecting, which is another bonus. Like it definitely went into places that I was not anticipating at all. Um, and by the end of it, you just feel like you got what you wanted and more. And I know that we're gonna get into spoilers. It kind of like leaves it a little bit open ended as to where it could go, but if they wanted to stop here, I'd be fine. Honestly, like I feel like this movie is just the definitive Godzilla experience. I've seen a lot of the older films, especially like the original, and I I would say I would probably agree with Will. It's probably my favorite Godzilla movie, just because I think it's the one that's probably had the most impact on me after watching it. And I got to rewatch the old ones because I saw a lot of them when I was in film school and college. We did kind of like this Godzilla marathon and watched like 6 or 7 of them. But this one for sure had the most impact on me, and it's definitely one I want to go see again. I'm glad it's doing really well internationally, and I'm hoping that it shows that you can take something like Godzilla, take an IP, and just do something really really different with it, and take a lot of risk with it, and you can end up with a reward like award like you did with this one. So
Mm.
it's definitely my top 3. I don't know where I'd put it yet. I gotta, at the end of the month, I'm gonna make that list. But definitely, I think it's probably squeezed into my top 3 for the year.
Hmm.
And then Chase, what about you, man? I know you were we bullied you into seeing it. So,
I actually
what
want
did you
to
think?
ask you guys this before I go into my take, because I don't know why I'm just so curious. Will, I know you love kaiju movies. We've had that talk before. Like you like monster fights and stuff like that. Gabe,
Yeah.
I never took you for a Godzilla fan. So what led you to go see this? Was it the trailer? You are a Godzilla fan?
I've been a Godzilla fan,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
man. Just
okay,
like you guys never thought I was a Friday the 13th fan and a Scream fan. I have
yeah,
my movies that I don't really talk like. Godzilla's one that I've always really enjoyed
yeah.
since I kind of was exposed to it, like I said, in college during my film studies course. um and I've always liked kaiju movies. It's just kind of like what Will said. There's just so many of them.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track. But I've always loved monster movies,
Okay.
and even the MonsterVerse. To be honest with you, like I know we were talking about in the server earlier today, the Godzilla versus Kong and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's still fun. You know what I mean? Like there's still fun popcorn flicks to watch.
Hmm.
But I don't think that they hit this level or this degree of like this caliber of what they were
For
able to
sure.
do with Godzilla minus one. But yeah, I've always been a fan of Godzilla. Just nothing I really ever talked about too much. So I
Yeah.
was super excited for this one. I was kind of like low key anticipating it, and I was planning on seeing it actually Thursday opening night, but I just had some work stuff going on. So, but it was better because then I saw it Friday with my brother, and I was able to see kind of his reaction to it.
Yeah.
And he freaking loved it. He was super like I kind of told him out the blue too. I was like, "Hey, you want to go see Godzilla?" And he's like, Godzilla. He didn't know about it, so
Yeah.
I sent him the trailer. He's like, "That looks cool. We'll go see it," and he loved it. He said it's like one of his favorite movies of the year. So
Hell yeah.
um, yeah, that's my
Yeah.
little background with kaiju and Godzilla. But always really appreciated those films.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and I can say the same thing. Yeah, like I was kind of worried that because I don't watch trailers, so I didn't watch this trailer. I just knew that
Mm.
that poster was like. I mean, of course, I make some exceptions. Furiosa trailer just dropped. There's
Yeah,
you
I was gonna
you.
say you watched that one for sure.
I watched that 2 minutes after it premiered. You're gonna have to shackle me and keep me away from the internet to stop me from watching that trailer.
You saw it more than once.
For sure. So yeah, like the trailer or the poster, that's one of my favorite minimalistic posters I've ever seen.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
it's a
like
beautiful poster.
easy. I need that as a new banner that's gonna pop up randomly back here one day. So yeah, it's definitely great. Every praise that you guys had, I was stoked. I was thinking about it because I literally got off and then went straight to that. Yeah, all the praises, everything about it. If you don't like this movie, like, it just entered the Letterboxd top 250, and I think it
Oh
deserves
wow.
everything. Yeah, I think it deserves
Yeah.
that. It literally has like less than 40 half-star reviews, and all of them are kind of weird. I think just trying to tank the ratings, being
Just
honest.
trolling.
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's a genuine heartfelt flick, and
Yeah.
so the thing is, and the way I like to say it, because there's not really much without spoilers that I can add with what you guys have said. Definitely a lot more once we hit the spoiler mark. To piggyback off of what you said, this takes the MonsterVerse, which I'm on Skull Island. I just rewatched 2014 because I'm in a kaiju mood all of a sudden. I don't know why, right? But something kind of motivated me to watch kaiju movies more. I watched 2014. I liked it more my second go. It's still, Will, you said it absolutely. I couldn't add anything more. You said it perfectly. It just lacked a certain kick and spice to it, a little bit of cilantro, and I think it could be great, right?
Right.
It's just a different type of movie. Like that one's with Godzilla in the background. Like there's a back shot where it zooms out into the soldiers on the ground. And you still see Godzilla where he was just in frame, still fighting in the background, full sequence, right? That's its whole kind of driving point. And then with King of the Monsters, it's much more like, oh, you want kaijus? Well, we're going to talk about them the entire runtime. So you can't say that there's nothing going on about kaijus and titans. So this one takes that, and I said this earlier, and some people agreed, and some people were kind of cautious about it. But I think this takes the tried and true formula, especially I also have been going back watching the 1950s ones. Minus One takes everything that the late Mr. Honda set a precedence for with Mothra Rodan, with Ghidorah, with Godzilla. Takes everything because those are surprisingly deep movies. Like
Yeah.
it's not just monster fights. As goofy as those are, and you tune in for those, they have really intricate stories in there. It takes that and it ups the ante, and I think it now sets the bar for, I believe Godzilla just hit what next year or in a couple months, the 70th anniversary, if not just past.
Yeah. A couple months. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So 70th
70
anniversary,
years.
I think this is going to be a new template for what audiences are going to want to consume. I really do think so. Of course, you're still going to want your Shin Godzillas, right? Your more fantasy driven ones. But I think that for what your average everyman will want to consume, especially with the sound design, I mean, I literally have nothing really to add without spoilers. The sound design was so crisp. Like the atomic ray when it actually bursts, because it's very quiet after it charges up and it actually booms, it almost gave me a jump scare because it was eardrum bursting damn near. It,
Yeah.
like it was wild. So that I wasn't expecting, like Will said. Like I didn't full on cry, but there was literally I had to keep count of it at this point. There was almost 4 points. It's like, man, he was going at you every 30 minutes at the heart. You know
Hmm.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I have for spoiler free. So do you guys want to go ahead and fire away on spoilers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Let's
down
do it.
for it. And I don't know if Will, if you want to start with that since you're the first one to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can open it up with one of the craziest, or in my opinion, one of the most amazing, horrifying. Just there's so many words I can throw out there to describe this because there's so many things that I'm feeling when I'm thinking about it. The atomic breath,
Oh my god,
Hmm.
like when it hits in the city and you just see the shockwave and just the horror on
that was a
everyone's faces
warhead.
as
Yeah,
it was, dude, it
Yeah.
was insane. And that's the scene I was referring to in the Discord. They somehow found a way to encapsulate, and I said this before, but convey just the sheer power and terror of what you would feel in that moment and what that would be
Hmm.
like.
yeah,
I was like sitting, I was just almost standing up in the theater because I was like, this is fucking crazy.
yep,
And
Yeah.
we're not exaggerating this for
no,
everybody that's watching or listening to this. This they find a way to really, and we said this before when we talked about it on the full podcast, but the emotional scenes and the character work and the story work help. They just make these action sequences that much more impactful.
Hmm.
You know, if you're watching a regular like a MonsterVerse movie, I don't want to keep comparing the two because I've said this before, and I do want to clarify yet again. The MonsterVerse is fun. Like I love those movies for what they are. They're fun popcorn flicks. I'm not trying to dog on the MonsterVerse or anybody involved with that project. I love those movies. That being said, um, yeah, this just it has those scenes that you would get from a MonsterVerse film, but they're so much more meaningful. They just stick with you so much, and they just hit you right in the gut,
Yeah.
because of how emotionally invested you are in the characters and the story, and that's why this movie works so well. To the fact that, or to the point when Godzilla does show up. And Gabe, as you said, it's there's no real build up to him. He
None,
just kind of
none at
shows
all.
up. And I think that's what's also why it works is because it kind of gives you the impression like, okay, well, he can show up at any moment,
Hmm.
right? And that plays into how unprepared the characters are, right? And you're kind of experiencing that as a viewer as well. You're not ready for it, and it's like, well, no, I we needed more time. They need to get ready, they need to prepare, they need to, um, they need to be mentally ready, and they're just not, and that kind of adds to like the hopelessness and just the plight that these characters are facing when they're up against Godzilla. So I just think that's done so well. But god damn, man, that atomic breath scene took my breath away, like
no,
Yeah.
in the
agreed.
best way possible. It was absolutely insane.
It's
When
freaking
that thing
awesome.
hits and you see the mushroom cloud, like I
It's
just did
wild.
not expect that.
It's like a nuke. It's like
Yeah,
in the
Yeah,
it
way it's
feels like a
shot.
second or a third nuke in their situation, right? Unfortunately,
yeah,
it's like they just went through two of them, and now it's like you have a third one, and it's like holy crap! Like this is
Yep,
like freaking devastating. And like Will said, it's like because of the characters and the story, it's not just like. And again, I'm not saying like the monster versus kind of like the brainless damage or whatever, but it's like the damage and the destruction have stakes now because it's like
yep,
you do care for these characters and you care about their well-being and it turns into not just like the main character and we're talking spoilers now, the girl that he meets and the child, but also all the other people he meets that were involved in the war and them trying to kind of like escape this identity of like, the kamikaze identity, so to speak, where it's like, I'm going to die for country. And there was that really emotional
yeah.
scene where I don't know if he was a general or commander or something, where he said, like, instead of like dying for Japan, like, let's try to,
We could
create a
fight for
Japan
the
like we can
future.
live for, yeah, or the
Yeah.
future and
I
instead. And I thought
forget
that
how that
was,
line went, but that's one of
yeah,
the best lines in the movie, hands
yeah,
down. That's the other
100%.
thing, to piggyback off what you're saying, Gabe, the dialogue in this movie, like, there were a lot of memorable moments of
Yeah.
dialogue in this film.
impactful and
Like,
powerful.
and that's what I love to see because the dialogue, it's not wasted.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Like, they didn't just come up with some, like, cringy, like, because like, if we heard something like that in, like, a Fast and Furious movie, it's like, okay, like, it's corny, but
Family.
it's just so yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But it's just so much more meaningful here, like, it doesn't come across as corny or cringy in any way, you know? The
Yeah.
dialogue was incredibly well, like really
The
well
writing in
written
general is
dialogue.
just
Um,
yeah, the writing in general just I think even I the opening scene, like where you see the pilot kind of land on, the
An
island and
island.
they're talking about like, there's nothing wrong with your plane. Why did you land? And I already had a kind of a background on, like World War II kamikaze pilots and stuff. I actually studied some of that stuff in my undergrad, but
okay.
I already kind of knew. I was like, oh, like he was supposed to like sacrifice himself in battle, but they're dropping those little subtle hints about it, and then they go into the whole conversation about like like yeah, you're supposed to die for country, and
Mhm.
it just creates this kind of like you already feel for the protagonist like within the first like 20-30 minutes. Not only did he feels like crap not only because he didn't die for his country, but then the whole opening sequence with Godzilla where he just pops out and he didn't get on that
Out
turret,
of
in
nowhere,
his
bro.
plane. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I want to talk about that too. But like, so he's feeling like double, shamed because it's like he didn't die during battle, and then like with the Godzilla thing, he didn't help. He just kind of ran and hid, and he feels like a coward.
yeah,
But yeah, that opening to me, the opening scene really stuck with me though, because kind of like what you said, well, it's like you're experiencing Godzilla as they are, right? It's
mhm,
not kind of like the slow build up where you get like, oh, there he is swimming under the water, or you hear his like, his breath or whatever. It's like literally
yeah,
they're just, they're doing stuff on the island. All of a sudden he just pops out and he's just,
yeah,
He's just there.
biting at people and he's just, stomping on them, and you're just like, what the fuck? Like this is crazy. And it
Yeah.
was scary, man. It was
yeah,
really, really scary just because of the way they delivered that moment. Um, the impact of it afterwards, where you see all the dead bodies laying on the floor, right? And you see the guy kind of pop out after hiding, and the dude confronting him saying like, "This is all your fault." It just creates right there, right then and there, you already have a solid foundation for a good story.
yeah. And I think the pilot's name is it Shikishima? I got to look it up on
I
IMDb
forgot the
because I
pilot's
don't.
name. That was
I think it's
last weekend, yeah.
Shikishima. That's the name I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, just so everybody who hasn't seen it knows, like he essentially is a kamikaze pilot who obviously survives. And I don't know. I think he pretends that his plane has a
Yep.
malfunction because I think
Yeah, that's
in
what it is.
the story. So he
Hmm.
pretends that his plane has a malfunction, and he turns back, and he ends up on the I think it's the island of Odo, if
Oh,
remembering
yeah.
Something like
correctly.
that.
Yes. Odo something.
That's
Hmm.
where he runs into this garrison of troops that are there on the island, some of which are mechanics that are working on the plane, and that's our first encounter with Godzilla. I want to ask you guys about that too because for a second there, that raised some eyebrows when Godzilla first appeared because, not only is he much smaller than
He's
what we're used
much
to seeing,
smaller.
but
Hmm.
much smaller. He looked more like a dinosaur. Obviously, later on, we know how he becomes, what we know him as, due to the radiation. But what were your reactions to that? I'm just curious because that kind of got
It
some
came out of
people in the theater
nowhere.
like, "Oh, wait."
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
like you're
Go
not
ahead,
used to
Trace.
getting him like that
Hmm.
early,
right.
and
Yeah.
yeah, I'll go into some more things because like Gabe reminded me of the smallest nitpick that I thought would. It's the lowest hanging plot thread I think in the entire damn movie that never
Okay.
gets confronted, and it has to do with the machine gun part. It has to do with the machine gun part. It makes zero sense
Okay.
how they don't ever bring it up. Like, you know what? Screw it, because I can't hold it in. When he doesn't shoot him in the head after
That's what
he
this is for, man. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
just do it. Let it go, man.
Let it all out, dude.
so it was after they put the mine in his mouth and they blow up. That is the coolest new superpower Godzilla's got, by the way. You can't kill him.
Regeneration.
Hmm.
Regeneration. So after they put the mine in his mouth, you would think like he would have some type of scene where it's like, well, shit, it doesn't matter that I didn't shoot him in the face. You know what I mean? At that point, when he
Mm.
had
Yeah.
him directly in the eye, you would think that there would be a point because he keeps beating himself up for that. Even later on in the
Right.
movie, there's a flashback, or whenever he's talking to the mechanic, brings that he's like, "You didn't shoot him." You would think they'd be like, "Well, I've seen this, like of course I feel shame, right?
Mhm.
But you
Yeah.
should see what I've seen. He can regenerate again. Like I said, the bullets are only gonna piss him off." They should have doubled
Mhm.
down on that. That would have been actually, I think, a very powerful line that they missed out on. But that was the only issue I had with the movie because I thought they were going to bring that up whenever him and the mechanic reunited later on.
Yeah.
But
I took
yeah,
that as like and this is me playing devil's advocate. I took it as like they don't care about that though. They care like at least for me, like it's
The
like he's a
idea.
kamikaze pilot. Like you should be sacrificing yourself regardless. So like like
Yeah.
even if you don't know if it's gonna work, you hop in that fucking turret and you blast at him because it's like that's
Yeah.
your job
That's your
kind of.
duty. You know, that's
Because
your
Yeah.
he
job.
they're
That's
all
probably why.
mechanics. You're a soldier, so like that's your duty as a soldier. That's kind of the vibe I got with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
But I see where you're coming from with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it would have been a powerful moment, but I totally see that too, like the honor of your duty and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely have some more thoughts because I think I actually had a slightly different reaction than you guys from the atomic breath.
Mhm.
And I wanted to bring that up. But yeah, how did that, whenever like Will posed the question, whenever he showed up on the island, how did it make you feel, Gabe?
I I don't know to be honest. Like, and I need to watch it again just because I wanted to.
I'm
It,
going to
it
right
took me
after
by
this.
surprise. Yeah, I know you are. It took me by surprise, man. I was just so shocked at that point that he was already there and like ripping people apart that I didn't even like gauge his size at that point. I was just like, holy crap,
Yeah.
Godzilla! It's only like 4 minutes in and Godzilla's here ripping people to shreds. Like, what the
Yeah,
hell is going on? Like, I
yeah,
really didn't even gauge his size. He did look smaller for
yeah.
sure. But I just kind of assumed that maybe it would show like how he grows and over the years because I think that it showed the year at the beginning of the movie, right? It was only like 1942. I think it was
Yeah,
like
it was
42,
sooner.
42. Yeah,
yeah, it was a little
Yeah.
bit
it was
sooner.
during the
So
war.
and I knew
I
this
think
movie was
there's
like
some stuff in
post-war
there.
Japan.
Yeah, I will. I just want to mention there's some stuff in there. I think there's a quick. I don't know if it's a montage, but I remember seeing there's a moment where they talk about the U.S. testing missiles or nukes in the Pacific, and I
Hmm.
think it shows like when they do that test, there's a quick shot of like Godzilla's
His
eye
eye, yeah, and it
kind of
opens
opening
up.
up, and I think that's meant to convey like, okay, he's going to be baptized in
Yeah,
radiation,
you
atomic.
guys screwed up.
So yeah.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask you guys in terms of spoilers, like, what was your guys' response when you saw the? I mean, we didn't know that she wasn't dead at the time, but when she died, like, what through
Oh,
when he
that
was in
ties
the
in.
city,
Yeah, that
yeah, like,
ties
what?
into how I felt.
How did you
Um,
guys feel about that part?
so I actually my very first sentence that passed in my head was whenever Godzilla was charging up like that. I just assumed a flamethrower, a laser beam out of the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? As we're used to for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting a nuclear warhead to shoot the fuck out of his face. You know what I mean? So the thing was like I was like, oh my god, this is so cool the way that his like the what would you
The
the
tail.
plate the plates, and it was like he was
Oh
like a
yeah.
The
mecha Godzilla.
spikes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then it
Yeah, dude, I
started.
love that part.
Bro, I
Yeah.
literally was like, "This is gonna be the coolest thing I've ever seen on screen." But then, as
Yeah.
soon as the atomic blast hit and it became a nuclear warhead, it all changed to sadness. Like
Yeah.
and I think that's what made this movie do it so well. Because soon as that hits, and then in turn, you're already confused on emotions because these are like the moments you tune in for most Godzilla movies. Like when Godzilla 14 was coming out, it's like, well, how are they gonna do this? It's about how
Hmm.
Godzilla does that, his most iconic aspect of him, right?
Yeah.
So whenever that happens and the entire city, and it hurt me, I don't know if you guys remember, but the city that they were in, there was a small line whenever she gets her job as the receptionist and starts going there, they
Yeah.
drop it subtly.
Hmm.
It's been almost rebuilt. It's been essentially it's been the
Yeah.
fastest rebuild that they've had.
I
Yeah.
Godzilla
think that's the
comes in
city of I think it's
of
Jinza, right?
Jinza.
Ginger,
Yep.
yeah, that city. Yep.
He comes in there and fucks it all up in 30 seconds. And
Yep.
then he not
Crazy,
only
man.
he sets them back to ground zero, and I'm already like, damn, dude. I'm literally in the seat like, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Then that dude's like love interest, partner thing, whatever it was, because that's a plot thread in there.
Hmm.
And just blown the way, like just the way it happened, and then the scenes, the way the CGI hits, everything.
Yeah.
Man, that is one of the most beautifully done scenes I've seen at least this year, if not in a long time. Like that was super impactful, super powerful, something you tune in to see be cool turned into something super emotional, man. That was wild the way that happened. And yeah,
Hmm.
man, that was one of those
Yeah.
parts where I was like, get back in there, Tier.
Yeah.
You know? You know what I mean?
Well,
I'm
that's
not crying now.
it's kind of unspoken, but I think it's a symbolic of her realizing that he has potential as a human being, in his life beyond the war, and
Hmm.
that's a repeated message that we as the audience we hear that throughout this movie is that there are other characters that are around him that are trying to convince him, like, dude, like, you have a reason to live. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? It's you can't spend the rest of your days regretting or feeling guilty or shameful about what you did or didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I mean, it's definitely a movie about redemption as well. I mean, obviously he has his moment to shine, but yeah, that scene in particular really that was one of the ones that almost got me too. 'Cause I was like, oh,
Yeah, dude. My jaw
just
dropped when it happened. Like literally,
yeah,
like when she got blasted away, I was like, I was just staring at
yeah,
the screen like stuck like that. I was like, no fucking way. Just because
Yeah.
yeah,
I think we're just so used to, the good guys, the protagonists just always making it through. Especially with
yeah,
these monster flicks. Like it's just it's the same, tried and true formula all the time. And the fact that she was, well, I mean, she didn't die at the end, but um it really hit me hard, man. And then it hit me even hard. I mean, if we want to talk about the end real quick, where she's there and going with the theme that you said, well, where she asks him, he's crying, bent over the hospital bed, and she's like something along the lines of like, "Is your war over now?" Or
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I forgot exactly what
That's
she said, but
exactly what
that
she
line,
said.
dude, that's when the tear came down my freaking face, bro. As soon as she said that,
yep,
I was like, "Oh my god, dude, that hit so damn hard."
Yeah.
yeah,
And I will say that was my only critique I had in the whole movie was I feel like they didn't let that moment kind of play out a little bit.
play
It
out
was
a
like
little bit
literally like he was crying, and then they kind of zoom in on the radiation poisoning on her neck a little
on
bit.
her neck. Yeah,
And then just cuts to the Godzilla theme. And I'm like, oh crap, dude! Like we should
yeah,
have just stayed in that moment a little bit while longer. But that was a complete nitpick on my part. Um, but yeah, that's where
Yeah.
I definitely like the tear was like starting to form when she died, but at the end, that's definitely when it came down my face, and I lost that battle.
You had to use buttered popcorn napkins to soak the tears away.
Exactly. I was like, you know what? I didn't cry, man. It was
And
tough, dude.
hey,
It hit
like
hard.
there was that, and also the final battle whenever
Oh
Godzilla's
yeah.
charging out, man, that was a massive combo of every type of emotion you could feel as a human,
Yeah.
man. Because like whenever he's staring the entire like that, like what you're looking at is Japan's last line of defense. You
Yeah.
yeah,
know, Godzilla is about to blink at them and eradicate them, dude. And I literally was like, oh God. Oh God, man. And the
yeah,
score in that particular scene did not help my emotions,
Mhm.
man. Like that was wild, dude. And I just everything about it. And then the part whenever he actually finally ejects and then it shows the part and he's like, live. I was like, don't you fucking do this
yeah.
to
That's
me
fucking
right now.
awesome.
Don't you get the fuck out of here.
Dude, yeah. It was such a well
Yeah.
planned scene. My brother said he saw that one kind of coming, and my other
Yeah,
buddy
for
that thought
sure.
he said he kind of saw. I actually didn't
Yeah,
see it coming. I was kind of maybe I'm just like it just went over me, but I
I just
just
don't think I had
didn't
time
see
to
that
think
coming.
about it. Like I was just
I
too
just thought
worried about the
that
boat crew.
I thought the
yeah,
mechanic was so vindictive at him for not,
Yep.
getting on that turret that I thought he wanted him. Like, yeah, you sacrificed yourself, dude, because you let all these guys die. So I didn't know he had that side of him that was like, you know what, you need to live. I don't know if it's because he saw something in him when he hopped in the cockpit, or he had a drawing from his like
Yeah, he had the
daughter.
drawing
Like
from
I
his daughter, and all of the mechanics that got killed on that night would be in that little
yeah.
envelope he always looked
oh
at. That was all
yeah,
the
so he
mechanics.
he probably
Had the
saw that,
pictures of
and
their families.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think maybe that's what he saw, and he said that he could live. So
yeah,
yeah, that was yeah, man, the music, the score too, which we didn't talk about, the score for this
Golly.
movie too. There's so many. I'm gonna be really pissed, dude, if this doesn't get a few Academy Award nominations. Like, I don't see it winning just because of the freaking Academy and how they are. But like, if you don't at
right.
least nominate it, like something's
Yeah,
wrong.
Yeah.
yeah.
Something's really wrong.
And
Well,
it's
Maybe
we
sound
we
like
have
mixing.
seen that before, unfortunately.
Yeah, with
Pearl. Don't
Pearl.
even get me
Yeah.
going. But I mean, you guys the way you guys talked about it. I mean, it was very specific things you guys said yesterday. Or I don't know if it was off air or if it was the last episode. But Will, you said it. You're like, I can't believe I'm talking about a Godzilla movie like this. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
and and
yeah,
it is kind of surreal. Like, if you had replaced Godzilla with anything else, you know what I mean? Like, I really think the movie would have been just as impactful. You know, if it had been another
right.
kaiju
Hmm.
one, would it have gotten us probably to go check it out? It's just a
Yeah.
Yeah,
familiar face to go check out a new, fresh take. The
Yeah.
score, the dialogue. Like, I don't think there's a wasted breath in there. I don't really think there's anything I would trim out of there. I think the runtime is rather tight. There are some
Yep.
types where I feel like it does drag on just a little bit, but without it, you wouldn't have the payoff and the character development that you do have.
Mhm.
Right.
Especially like the early scenes where they're in the little shanty town for about a good 20-30 minute stretch. I wouldn't take any of it away as much as it was like, okay, where's my big lizard
Yeah.
guy? I need my friend back. So,
Yeah.
because then it pays off when he finally gets on there.
Yeah,
I
there is a
I
little bit of a
yeah.
drag. Like, I mean, just I think it was for me the only. If I had to say it was a drag, it really wasn't. But if I had to trim any part of this movie, it's just like when they're explaining how they want to destroy Godzilla, like
It
the
did
whole
go on a
plan with
while.
the sink, and I was like, man, this is like a long time just to explain this one plan. Like I already kind of get it. But there he had the little water model, and he was showing the exam. I'm like, this is kind of taking a little bit of time. But I mean, that's just me nitpicking. I honestly, and I said that in the review too, is like anything with this movie, it's me completely nitpicking. Like
Yeah,
it's
finding something.
nothing. Yeah, it's just finding something to critique. Like everything else just kind of overrides that so much that you really don't even care about it at the end of the day.
I think that plan was really well thought out too. Like that's the first time I think I've watched a movie in a while where there's some kind of, it's like they're coming together to form this planned attack, and I was like, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like they
Hmm.
actually thought about it. Like they spent time to try to make that work. So
Yeah.
I actually appreciated that. I agree with that whole when they had the meeting when they were going through it. It was a little elaborate, but
I
the
almost
plan
took that as
itself
a
I thought was
bathroom
really
break
cool.
time.
Yeah.
He took his
It's just,
bathroom break time.
yeah.
Didn't you guys tell me there was an app that actually like tells
No,
you when to go to the
he went to
bathroom?
the bathroom to wipe the tears from his eyes to,
Yeah, the butter
clean
started
himself
getting
up.
in it, so I was crying harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I
there
mean, and
is.
I don't know like with the ending. I don't know what you guys thought about that little ending. I mean, it's not a post-credit scene, but it's kind of like
Oh,
this,
three generation.
the
It's cool as fuck.
regeneration at the end.
He's invincible. You can never
Jesus
get
just
rid of
like cool
Godzilla.
as fuck. Fuck yeah, let's go.
Yeah. It's different. I like whenever something that has been so stagnant for a while, like
Hmm.
King of the Monsters, whenever he gets his powers, it's more of a, okay, Goku's going Super Saiyan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's much more of that, but this is a complete, this changes how Godzilla can be tackled. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like it changes the core of what we know as Godzilla. So, I mean, I think it would be cool because you could leave it as just -1, but you can also
Hmm.
leave it open for another sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I think a sequel needs to be made? Only if it's warranted. I mean, the script was being written for 3 years. So, I mean, as long as they aren't like,
Yeah.
oh, -1 was a success, we need another one out soon.
Yeah, they started this during COVID actually,
Yep.
the
Oh
writing.
wow,
Yeah.
Yep.
that's crazy. Yeah, I mean,
I
if
just
the
don't know how they
story's
follow it
there.
up.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you're following the same characters, right? I mean, it's post World War II Japan. I mean, it's just pretty much reconstruction. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, so and that's from my understanding, and I'm not a Japanese historian by any means, but like I think that's when they're actually the Japanese people are actually doing pretty well. Like during the Reconstruction era, and they're rebuilding everything. Their economy is starting to do well. So I don't know if maybe that's when he would hit, but yeah, I don't know what they would do for a sequel.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hard script to write for sure.
Let me pose this then. With all the horror elements we talked about, imagine if they even just threw Rodan in there. I think Rodan would kind of make it a little goofy.
Yeah.
Not as goofy as Mothra,
Yeah.
But I mean, if you add even just one more kaiju, I mean, I think a King Ghidorah or something like Godzilla having a foe. But again, I
Yeah.
think that's what this did so well. It wasn't a monster fight, but if you have two of them just like full on trying to destroy the city before it's like protector of Japan Godzilla, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I think you could actually make a full on horror Godzilla movie that way. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we thought we killed you. We just had this super elaborate plan.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How can we kill you? We got to shoot you into outer space now somehow at this point,
We got to
like
Yeah.
nuke you or
Doomsday
something,
style.
yeah.
I do think this movie had some of those horror
Oh,
elements
for
that
sure.
you were
Mhm.
talking about, like,
Yeah.
and I will say this, I mean, we already really talked about the Monsterverse. I don't wanna spend too much time talking about that, but I will say it made me think of when I think it was, like, the teaser trailer for the 2014 film came out, and it was kinda just the skydiving scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they jump out of the plane and they're descending into the city. There's,
Mhm.
you know, smoke and ash and fire everywhere. And you kinda see Godzilla, like, his silhouette in the clouds. He's just this, like, hulking, like, shadow, that was really cool. Like, 'cause I
Yeah.
remember watching that trailer and be like, "Oh, damn, this is kinda like horror." Like, it looks
Mhm.
creepy, you know?
Hmm.
So I was really glad that they had those elements in here. I wouldn't say it's more like monster horror, just more like horrific in terms of just the sheer destruction and power that he possessed, right? And
Yep.
how helpless everybody was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think a sequel's only warranted if they can, before you even talk about bringing other kaijus, other monsters, other, like any of this big CGI destruction stuff. Like I think they need to land a good story. They need to focus on
Needs to make
what to
sense.
do with, if they choose to follow this family. I'm assuming that the radiation poisoning thing that they were wanting to continue with that story arc in some way. So as long as they have a good story with that family, and they nail that down, then they can do what they did with this movie. I felt like they really focused in on the human interactions and the human story, and then just kind of build Godzilla around that. And I think that's why it was so done so well. So if they do that for the sequel, I'm sure it'll be solid. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm willing to wait for it. If they take 5, 7 years to make this movie, do it. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? But
absolutely.
take your time with it. I'm sure it's going to get a bigger budget, which I'm interested in seeing how it's going to look. If this was 15 million bucks and they give them 30 or 40 million for the next one, like it's going to be interesting to see.
It's at 41 after opening weekend, so it's already making money.
That's awesome.
Is that here or internationally?
Is that
I
yeah? Is that global or is that just
'Cause I know it's like
domestic?
breaking box office records in Japan, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm only seeing that in USD, so I don't know if that's
Oh, really?
converted. Yeah.
Hold on, I'm gonna check Box Office Mojo and see.
Well, while we're on the topic of it, after Will, I know you gave it a 4.5 on
Yep.
your letterboxed. Has time
Yes.
changed that?
Yeah, I mean, and I think I said this. I don't know if I said this during the full length podcast, but I gave it a 4.5. I was kind of with Gabe. There were some like editing choices in certain scenes,
The
like
drawn out
particularly the
cuts?
last scene. Yeah, and then there were some other scenes where they had like some fades,
Yep.
and I
That
mean, it
bothered
kind
me.
of like
Mhm.
It
some of
did.
yeah, and I am trying to like be again. That's really just nitpicking. Like
Yeah.
technically, this is a near perfect movie. I
Yeah.
mean, no movie's
Yeah.
perfect, but yeah, I mean, you know what? I'd probably be willing to give it 5 stars upon a rewatch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes I go into movies, and I told you guys this before. When I rate things on Letterbox, I can still love the hell out of a movie, but technically feel like, okay, well, there's just some imperfections here and there that I personally noticed.
Yeah.
But
Give it
yeah,
a
I
3.
definitely say that it does it deserve 5 stars? Yeah, of course. I think it's an awesome movie. I don't want the 4.5 stars to deter anybody from feeling that way. Because I definitely think that this movie is a movie that deserves to be seen. I would highly recommend that anybody, if they have the time and capability to see it in the theater while you can, because it definitely was an experience. So yeah, I'd say I would definitely be willing to give it 5 upon a rewatch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, for me, I was gonna go give it a 4.5, but I feel like I was just kind of nitpicking. But I
Same.
get where what Will is coming from. It's like there even like the Dark Knight. I love the Dark Knight. You know what I mean? But there are like small like technical kind of things that I could see with that movie where it's like, yeah, maybe it's like a 4.5 out of 5. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
Mhm.
as an experience, like as an overall theatrical cinematic experience, it's a 5 out of 5 for me for Godzilla.
Oh,
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
I even had a buddy that used that analogy. They said like this is like the Dark Knight of like kaiju movies, like what you had said,
I
Chase, where like
agree.
this is like the new bar of like what it
Yeah.
could be like, and it's exciting, man. I'm hoping that they really take in what they did with this film and what they did right with it, and implement that for the second one. And it is at 41 million globally right
Global.
now. That's the global total. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good.
And
It's made. Let me
let's
see.
also hope that people in Hollywood, take notice and
Dude, like
maybe
I think you said that. Well, it's like they need
go
to
see
show this in boardrooms, man. Like
boardrooms.
$15
Yeah.
million freaking
Yeah.
movie, and it looks freaking incredible. It
And it
looks better
and
than
it
any Marvel movie that's been out.
Well, that's what I said before. It has the feel of $100 or $150 million movie, right?
Hmm.
It has the feel of a big budget, monster movie, but like summer blockbuster. And I said before, like other than being December, like this is the type of movie that I would expect to see in the heat of blockbuster season. But it
Agreed.
it does everything that like I feel like some of the old school blockbusters used to do. Just in terms of the emotional content of it and just making those action sequences that much more impactful. I mean, Top Gun had a similar formula. I don't want to compare this to Top Gun, because obviously they're two completely different movies. But in terms of like stylistic choices, I just think like in terms of how it was structured, I think that's why Top Gun was so successful too, because it's so different than like the typical summer blockbuster that we've become used to with like the Fast and the Furious movies and movies of
Mhm.
that ilk, right? Where it's just kind of like ridiculous sequence after ridiculous sequence and, little character work, so to speak. So,
Yeah.
yeah, just super refreshing in that regard.
Yeah, and if it
Yeah.
wasn't obvious, I gave it a 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Get the hell out of here.
3 out of 5,
Are we
man.
done with this? Can we go?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, perfect. I
I
really
haven't
do
read your
enjoy it.
letterbox review. Did you do it?
I think I did like
Did
2
you?
sentences or something like that.
I think you
Oh,
did.
okay.
I was
Yeah, I gotta
waiting
check
until
it out.
I did want to shout this out. Like, if you are watching this and you have the ability to go see this in Dolby, this is a Toho published one. So the odds of us getting an American 4K release, as much as we wish and are hopeful, Toho does not. They are about to release their 9th Godzilla flick in 4K.
Yeah.
Not a single one has made it over here, right?
Mhm.
Go support it in cinemas. The odds of us getting a Blu-ray are really high, but if you have a Dolby, go support that. Go support that format. Because that's going to be the best way for us to see that in a long time. That's why
Yeah.
that's why like they're stopping showing it here in Dolby tomorrow, so that's why I have to go see this in 7.1 tonight.
Damn, dude, you're making me want to go see it again.
Go
I'm
do
wondering
it.
if
I'm
it's a
talking
Dolby
to you,
around
not the
me.
audience.
Oh my god, I'm actually looking it up right now to see if it's in freaking Dolby.
Now you know what I felt like on Sunday whenever you guys kept talking about it, and I'm over here, dude. By the way, I wanted to say this. I was watching seats go away while I was trying to look at it. Like
Really?
where I usually sit, it was packed. It was sold out. I got the last 2 seats, and luckily it was like I wasn't staring upwards, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, that's everything. Godzilla minus one. I'm stoked to go see it again. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah. Closing thoughts, it's not playing in Dolby next to me, unfortunately, even though I have a Dolby theater.
That
But
is
yeah, I mean,
sad.
closing thoughts, dude. I mean, it's just something that I was just going in to casually have a good time with. You know what I mean? That I thought I'd walk up and be like, that was fun. It turns out to
Agreed.
be one of my favorite movies of the year, top 3 for sure. And I'm hoping maybe that we get a 4K with it. I mean, with the budget, I mean, with the how much money it's making and the international attention it's getting, I'm hoping that they, give it a solid physical release. But the movie itself, though, freaking brilliant. And I think if people haven't seen it, they need to go see it, like you said, and chase it in theaters, because like it's gonna be a completely different experience seeing it theatrically. So 5 out of 5 for me. Everyone needs to go watch it.
Agreed. Godzilla will save the cinema.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to be doing more content for you guys. I know we were talking about doing some more unboxings, some shorts, some reviews for movies we have coming in. I think we were talking with the Discord server about bringing some more members in for some episodes. I know we're just trying to get through the rest of the holiday season, though.
The rush.
Yeah, the rush. There's a lot to do for the holiday season, man. But after that, I think, we will start kind of bringing in more community members in for episodes, doing a lot more different content and variation of content. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and this will be, I think, our first YouTube exclusive thing outside of our pilot episode of the beautiful money shots that Will posted of the Barbarella. So this will be our second YouTube exclusive.
Barbarella short. Yeah, this will be much longer than that, but definitely check that
Yeah.
out too. We'll be posting more of those too. That's going to be like supplemental content. So stay tuned for that, everybody. And obviously, when you guys are watching this, if you like what we have to say, if you like listening to us, why for lengths of time? I mean, if you're into it, that's great. But yeah, like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And go
which we
see Godzilla.
appreciate you guys for doing so, because we were reading some people in the Discord and the Reddit saying that they've been listening and they like the podcast. So we appreciate you guys for listening and even putting up with us for an hour and a half at a time sometimes.
Thank you, everybody.
Take it easy,
Thanks,
guys.
guys. Take it easy.